Now for the final question, and that is closing thoughts.
We hear a lot in the news media about how strapped the consumer is, how much debt there is in this country, how there's a lot of unfunded pension liabilities and so forth. And all of those things are true. But one of the things that people forget about is how wealthy and how great this country really is. And I'm just not saying it as opinion. Let's talk about the facts. The facts are that at the peak of the market in 2007, we had $79 trillion worth of assets. And people say, oh yeah, that's a lot of assets, but there's a lot of liabilities. There's all these mortgages and all this consumer debt and all of these liabilities. By the time you subtract those, you don't have that much. Well, I'll let everybody else be a judge, but there's $79 trillion of assets. There's $13 trillion of liability, which includes the $10 trillion in mortgages. That still gives you net, after all expenses, after all debt, $65 trillion. And that is a lot of money, and it's hard for me to visualize that this country is going to go broke with $65 trillion of net assets. And that is household assets. That's not government assets. That is the people's assets. Now let's see what happened during the decline. As the market and the real estate and everything and the bond market, everything came down, those assets went from 79 to 62. That's a 20% decline in assets. That is huge because the market went down 50%, but there's real estate and there's bonds and all of these other things. At the top of the market, you had net assets after liability at 65 trillion.
Right.
At the bottom, we had 48 trillion. Now, with the pickup in the market and with the economy and so forth, we've already recouped $6 trillion, and I would suggest it's more because we haven't got the latest figures out. I think next month when the latest figure come out, they're going to be a lot higher because this is at the end of the year. But let's just assume that these are the final numbers. It's 54 trillion. So while we were at the peak at 65, we dropped to 48, we're back up to 54 trillion. So the American people have assets of $54 trillion after the consumer debt, after the mortgage debt, after everything else. And so that is quite a bit of assets. So you have to put that into perspective when you read all these newspapers about how everybody's strapped. There are a lot of people that are strapped. There's a lot of people going bankrupt. There's also a lot of wealthy people. And the net effect of this is it's $54 trillion. And so I think that's a very significant number. Now, here's the thing about the future, if you want to talk about the future. As I look out over the next 3 to 5 years, I think it's going to be a very volatile environment because we're in the throes of working out our problems. And sometimes it'll look like we're doing really good, like it recently, and the market will run up, and then some problems will surface, and then the market will react. But it's going to float around what the true value is. But then once we're through these problems, and I think that over the next 3 to 5 years, we have a very good chance of working those out. Then when you look into the future, I mean, you can't have anything brighter than that. And the reason is that these $54 trillion of assets were created with mostly the American people. Okay, that's 200 to 300 million people. So we've created $54 trillion of net assets. Now we've got China with over 1 billion people and India. Together, they're over 2 billion people. They are industrializing, they are innovating, they are creating wealth at a rate that is literally breathtaking. And so now you have added 2 billion more people to the market. In other words, India is going to have middle class, China is going to have middle classes, and they're going to buy all the things that our American companies sell. We used to look at China and India as just low-cost labor. In other words, people would get their products produced over there because they cost less, the labor is less. But now, the Indian people and the Chinese people are creating tremendous professional people. There's engineers being cranked out and all kinds of different levels of profession so that they are actually starting to rival us in innovation. So not only are these countries going to be good consumers, but they are going to create productivity increases that are breathtaking. And the thing that has made this country so wealthy is the constant increase in technological process and that productivity. And when you increase productivity, you create profits. Can you imagine over the next 15 to 20 years what they are going to do for the world wealth? And I would personally want to participate in that wealth through all of the different companies worldwide and the companies we have in this country, because they will be the direct beneficiaries. So over the next 3 years, it's going to be bumpy and volatile, maybe even as long as 5 years. But somewhere down the road, when this all starts clicking in, we're going to see market multiples a lot higher and stock market profits a lot higher than they are. And so that gives me great cause for optimism, even though we've got some work out to do in the meantime.
Thank you, Arnold.
It's been my pleasure, Scott.
Well, this ends our discussion today. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch today's interview, and we look forward to giving you future updates on our website, both through our video and our newsletters. Thank you very much for watching.